everyone. Welcome to Informed Dissent, a news podcast that brings you dispatches from the gender culture wars. I am your esteemed host this week, Jamie Reed, gender clinic whistleblower, and I am the co-executive director of the LGB Courage Coalition, which is currently being called a hate group by most of those who live in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I am joined today by disenchanted transsexual Corey Cohn, who is a podcaster on 2 podcasts.
That's right.
And the always insightful writer and researcher, Eliza Mondegreen. Hi, friends. How are you today?
Excellent.
Good.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi.
Hey, Jamie. I really thought you were going to introduce yourself as our esteemed host, Ben Appel, but maybe next
No, I knew to edit that out.
Okay.
Good job.
I prepared enough in advance to say that I am not Ben Appel. I don't know. Ben Appel is out today, and Lisa Sellen Davis is stirring up what I like to refer to as good trouble again at a school district, first school district.
Yep, she's doing the thing that she said she was gonna stop doing, but that was like several months ago.
We need to have like an intervention with her.
I think this kind of stirring up trouble is a good thing. If she doesn't do it, who's going to do it?
Yeah, I think she was gonna stop doing it for personal mental health reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll just support her and help her power through.
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, last week there were a lot of amazing comments, which I just want to let all of our listeners know. I actually read them all, but often I can't figure out which Substack I'm logged into, so I can't reply to your comments, but I absolutely read every single one. So thank you for those comments. Corey, do you also read the comments?
I read some of them.
Yeah.
One of them was it hurt me so badly that I spent all week ruminating about it, and I'm wearing a hat today because of it.
Well, maybe that commenter will know what you're referencing. And Eliza, you read the comments because you actually sometimes reply.
I sometimes reply, but I haven't been getting comment notifications for like a month.
Oh,
So I have to remember to check it several times a day.
okay.
And
So
Sancho reads the comments.
Oh, yes. And Sancho's here in the background, which is the cat, in case you're just listening. Okay, I'm going to read off a couple of the headlines. I think some of these are more relevant than others, but I think they're good to know. In case people are interested, the HHS report on the website did publish some minor corrections. I thought that they handled this really professionally. They put forward a word that I can't know how to pronounce, ERRATA.
Errata.
Errata?
Errata.
Does that mean correction?
It's like a record of errors.
Okay.
Acknowledgement of errors.
Yeah, it was. I read through all of the acknowledgement of errors. It wasn't really significant in any way, but I thought it was very good that they are publicly tracking where they're making corrections. Something that those on the Integrity Project did not seem to think was relevant in research. They just changed shit and didn't tell anybody what they changed. Okay, so on the 9th, Charles Barkley jumped in and made some comments to out sports, essentially, quote, a massive blow to trans athletes. It was noted that Charles Barkley had been a longtime supporter of gays and lesbians in sports, and so this was seen as a major kind of blow. On the 10th, Salt Lake City decided that they were going to go against the state ban of some flags, and so they stuck a random flower on a pride flag and a Progress Pride flag and like a trans flag, and they're calling it an official city flag now because the state had banned any flags from being flown that are not actual state sanctioned flags.
How did leftists take over Salt Lake City?
I was wondering the same thing.
I have no idea. I mean, is that to me is like a story in its own right. Like, who is in charge of Salt Lake City local government? I guess it's not the Mormons anymore.
I don't know. This seems like a story for Bar Pod. What on earth happened in Salt Lake City?
Yeah. Um, I I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I also thought it was way overstepping, and I I, I think it's a waste of time to argue these things out in courts, but I think that they're going against the reason for the state ban. So there's that. Um, I was raised Catholic. I'm just gonna say this for the record because the Catholics around the world got a new pope. It is Pope Leo XIV. Anybody know the Roman numerals?
14.
So does that mean this is the 14th Pope named Leo? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So apparently Pope Leo has a brother who lives in Florida who has been allowed to be on social media a lot. His oldest brother, and Pope Leo was born in Chicago, has written and shared a series of, quote, vulgar posts and memes on social media. Among the accusation from his brother, anyone with a transgender child is a, quote, shitty parent, and has called former House Speaker and fellow Catholic Nancy Pelosi a drunken C word. Um, this will be very interesting to see if there is any official policy motivations or shares by Pope Leo's brother in his future decrees. But yeah, this is what happens. I think, Eliza, you said when your older relative.
I mean, everybody has this relative on Facebook, so it's very humanizing for the Pope, I think.
Okay. And finally, one of the news issues that I feel like is kind of close to my heart is Montana. So
Because you've been there
Montana,
how many times now?
it's not as much how many times that I've been to Montana. It's that I've been a part of this court case for a while. So Montana passed Senate Bill 99, and it was quickly challenged through the court system. And we've seen these challenges in every state, but what is kind of interesting about Montana is that I do feel like their court system has a strong libertarian streak. Montana is very much like, we do what we want, don't tell us what to do. And so that streak has been kind of finding itself in their judgment. So the Montana judge found that the SB 99 was unconstitutional. The 59-page ruling from District Court Judge Jason Marks found that it was violating Montana's constitutional right to privacy, equal protection, and free speech. The law had been temporarily enjoined before it was scheduled to take effect. And there was a quick story that came from Aaron Reed's Substack about this being a major win. The LGBT Courage Coalition is going to put out a Substack early next week because what's interesting is that another bill was just recently passed in Montana that might do the same thing that Senate Bill 99 was going to do. But what I think that this ruling points out is a few things. One, these bills do need to be crafted well. So you can't just say we want to ban and not explain your reasons, mechanisms, the whys, and the hows. And then two, there's been an assumption that red states are strong supporters of these, and there is, I mean, Corey, you're a libertarian.
Yes. You
Can
know, you can say it confidently. Try again. Try again one more time.
Okay, Corey, you're a libertarian.
I sure am.
Explain that kind of duality of the libertarian mindset of we don't want a lot of rules and restrictions, but yet
Right.
supporting of this.
Supporting of this being, define this again really quick.
Bans against puberty blockers, cross-sex
Okay,
hormones.
so make the case why a libertarian supports banning these things.
Yes, can you do that?
Okay, sure. One, there's a couple of aspects from the libertarian viewpoint here. One is that actually body autonomy is really important. People should be able to decide to invest a lot in maintaining their body, their high fitness. They should be able to choose to drink raw milk if they want to. They should be able to choose which vaccines to put in their body or which ones not to put in their bodies, so on and so forth.
Do libertarians believe then in like legal access to marijuana often?
Decriminalization is probably the libertarian viewpoint,
Okay.
not legalization, decriminalization.
Got it. Okay.
Right? And this is subtle, right? If you legalize it, that means that there's a legal framework to support access to it. Whereas if you just decriminalize it, it's nobody's business. Okay. So this is a really important part of libertarianism is your ability to make these types of choices and for the government not to come in and interfere. So libertarians are split on this issue. In fact, the Chase Oliver, their candidate for 2024, was in favor of child sex disfigurement because he thinks it's something that parents ought to be able to choose for their kids. The other libertarian side of this is it's so important that you have this autonomy, that you're the owner of your own person, but that children do not have the judgment or autonomy, I suppose, to enter into these sorts of decisions, to agree to the things that are being done to them. So the other side of this is preserving the ability for a person to make these choices, because children cannot consent to this.
Okay.
So there's a lot of argument over at what point is consent. I guess this sort of goes back to the UK Gillett competency type of test. At what point is a person, do they have competency to make these types of decisions for themselves? And all of us agree, no 4-year-old does. And I don't think even all of us agree whether a 25-year-old does. But at some point, there's either a test that can be made at the individual level or some sort of rule that is set at a broader social level that says, at this age, people enjoy the presumption of being able to make this decision, or here's a test that doctors should apply to make a determination whether that competency exists. But libertarians like me would say children cannot make these decisions, and they have the right to participate in these decisions. Therefore, don't let these procedures happen until kids can be reach some level of competency to participate in it.
Would you say that Montana has a strong libertarian streak, though? Is that kind of a correct assumption of that state?
I don't know. That's something I'm not really sure about.
Okay.
It doesn't seem stable over time.
What, Montana? Or
any of these political preferences don't seem stable over time. We're at a point in, we're in 2025, and the term rhino, which is Republican in name only, that term is being thrown at people who are in favor of free trade and smaller government and less taxes. So there's so little stability, especially right now, that I can't say anything about Montana. That might have been true in the 2000s. 20 years ago, it might have been true. Who knows about today?
Okay. So today we had a number of listeners want us to dive back into the HHS report a little bit, which we're going to do. Before we do that, I just wanted to pull apart one more tiny thing that was in the news this week, which is around funding for PBS and NPR. So I'm just gonna self-confess here. I was a total NPR junkie for years. Oh, also there were comments about how people are concerned about my health and my caffeine consumption.
Yeah, good.
No, I'm fine. Everything's fine. 8 shots of espresso a day is fine. What is not good is to listen to 12 hours a day of NPR. So I'm a self-confessed previous NPR junkie. I had answered phones before for their telethons. I was a pledger. Yeah. Okay, Corey done the same. What's interesting is that I think so many of us talk about NPR, but I don't feel like we've talked a lot about PBS.
Mhm.
So do either of you two have a strong history or thoughts about PBS's defunding or their take on trans? Have you seen anything? No.
Probably haven't really seen PBS since I was a kid. But
Oh.
I don't think that it's in quite the same category as NPR. I think that there has been more balance, and there's also just a lot of programming that hasn't been politicized to the same extent. Like they still do the children's programming, they still do the, I guess maybe the times that I've seen it on, my dad is a big fan of their history documentaries where they tease out like one tiny little piece of information for 60 minutes, and then it seems like they still have a lot of content that is neutrally presented public education, but I've never seen coverage. I don't know if they've covered the gender stuff.
Okay, interesting. Corey, do you have any thoughts on PBS? No. Okay.
No.
So I have an interesting historical piece about PBS. I do think PBS has weighed in a little bit on trans. And one of the things that was hugely influential to me personally before I started working in a pediatric gender center was there was an episode, I believe, of Frontline. Don't quote me on that part, but Frontline is one of those news shows that I loved. And okay, let me just go back to when I was a child. Tiny childhood memory here. We had one of those rotary dial televisions. And I remember that my dad had glued, like you had to click,
A
click,
what?
you had to click the channels
Okay.
to turn the TV channels like it was a.
So, right, I remember. So if you wanted channel 13, you'd go, shh,
No, not like that. You were
and then it
not
would turn to channel
clicking
13.
no, I mean like it was a knob and you could only turn it
So
around.
it's
And
like tuning a
Oh.
radio?
is this not a thing? Was it not a okay, okay.
Anyway, you watched the TV and maybe
Well,
you had
so my dad was a little bit still is an amazing human being, but a little bit of a strange duck. I remember that he had glued wooden little blocks on either side, and you couldn't turn the channel off of PBS.
okay.
It was
So that's the parental controls of an earlier time.
that was the parental yes, exactly. You could not turn the channel off of PBS. So I remember being a kid on Saturday morning, and everybody else got to watch Saturday morning cartoons, and I watched the local college geography streaming class that was on the TV because the local community college had a television program for their geology class. So I learned about rocks on Saturday mornings because I could only watch PBS. So how to
It's no wonder you became an anarchist, Jamie.
well, also I have friends that tell me I appear as if I was homeschooled, even though I was not.
Yeah, I can
seem like
totally,
a
I can totally
homeschooler.
see that.
Yeah.
Like they're like, we're really surprised you went to school and you were not
Mhm.
homeschooled. Anyway, so PBS had a program on the transgender child very early on. This would have been like 2016, maybe 2017. And I
Yeah.
remember watching it and thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. This is the radical new science. This is great. But it was just because I had so much trust in PBS.
Yeah.
So does anybody approve of the Trump administration wanting to defund? And I also feel like this comes up every Republican administration.
It does.
Do we defund NPR, PBS?
As another former NPR junkie, I just want them to like have an internal revelation, an internal process of reform, and not to be. I just want them to like wake up and not be crazy anymore. Is that asking too much? Like,
Do you even try to tune in anymore?
I mean, I played the NPR game for a number of years, and now I just listen to the BBC.
What's the NPR game?
So this has been apparently independently derived by a bunch of people because I was playing it before I heard Katie Herzog mention it on Blockchain Reported. But it's basically you turn on NPR and you wait until they say something obnoxiously identitarian about like race or gender or immigrant, you know, any of those, but it's mainly just those two. And then you turn it off and you see how long it was.
Corey's
It's usually like 60 seconds.
Yeah.
okay.
It got
I
too
started doing this during the pandemic, and
yeah.
you could do it now. And I did it a little bit during 2024. You turn on NPR, and the next story is going to either be about the environment, about Gaza, about abortion, or about environment, Gaza, abortion, or race, some sort of racial equity thing.
Okay.
Almost guaranteed that it won't take more than, there might be one story that's not one of those 4 categories, but the next story will be.
And so you basically turn it on, you get to one of those and you just turn it off.
Yeah. I think at one point, I think this was somewhere around August or September of last year when the campaign was really at the high level. I went and I looked at the NPR website where they list all the stories that they broadcast. And there was something like 85 abortion stories in a 30-day period. And
Hey, could we play devil's advocate though? I mean, was it not a big Supreme Court ruling and it was being kicked back to the states? I mean, shouldn't they have had some coverage of it?
Yeah. That just seems like a lot though.
it's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot to have at least 2 new abortion stories every day and putting them in rotation. That's a lot.
Okay.
Like it's basically it's for one audience, and it's really to get people charged up to support one political viewpoint. It's identical in form to when Fox would just run the same 3 or 4 stories. It's like it's easy for people to go, oh yeah, Fox would just keep running the same culture stories over and over and over and over to get people mad at Obama. Yeah, it's what NPR is doing, except I'm paying for it also.
Okay. Is there any hope to save NPR? No, Corey's shaking his head no. Corey, pretend like you're on the radio and you have to verbally say your response. No, you whistled and my dog just popped up her head like, what just happened?
Today, Trump administration has announced the complete defunding of NPR, and nobody cared. I don't know.
The people that work at NPR would care. Okay.
They would just go find jobs with some other left-wing think tank.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really depressing for me because so I've been working on my book, And my writing trick from when I was a teenager on was if I was really stuck, I would imagine that Terry Gross was asking me questions. And now I just can't do it anymore.
Really?
It doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
I really liked Terry Gross.
Yeah.
I even liked Diane Reeves. Sorry, I touched my voice. I was like, what was her name? I touched my voice. Diane Reeves?
Was she the
Diane
uncle?
Ream.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that woman. Yes.
Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers. I mean, I listened
yeah.
to Weekends. Okay.
Prayer Room Companion, which we've talked about many
okay.
times on this podcast.
Science Friday. Which has
Science
become
Friday.
completely corrupted.
Correct. Yeah. Radio Lab. I loved Radio Lab.
Oh, it was so overproduced. It made me want to stab the radio, but
oh, that was one of my favorites. Okay. So I have one more NPR question for you because I have a lot of self-doubt sometimes.
okay.
In theory, if you had one of the biggest culture kind of war stories break in a local NPR area,
Mhm.
and it was a whistleblower,
Yeah.
just normally a lefty go-to, and they were a nice previous NPR listener.
Yeah.
This is all hypothetical.
This is all
Yeah.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
Do you think that that local NPR station should have ever spoken to that person in their own backyard?
Definitely not. Because it might give people the wrong impression about a key culture war issue.
Okay. That was the thing that struck me in the heart the word.
Yeah, no, that's pretty demented.
Even after I emailed all of them a bajillion times and I was like, I would love to speak to you. Also, you spoke to Aaron Reed and Evan Urquhart about me.
Yeah.
And I'm your resident in your region.
Yeah.
Would you please speak to me? No, never.
No.
Okay. I think I told this story before, so I'll keep it very, very short. But a couple of years ago, I went and I had a meeting with the president of our local NPR affiliate, WFYI.
How do you get these meetings?
You just ask.
Okay. I know what email I'm sending after this.
Hi, I've been a long time supporter. I'm not anymore. Could I have 30 minutes of your time and just talk about, what's going on?
Okay.
That's almost identical what my mine said. And he
And
said,
they
sure.
gave you a meeting.
Of course.
Did you? Okay. Okay. So I guess we should encourage all of our listeners, all of your listeners, email your local NPR president and ask for a meeting.
So the thing that I always encourage is don't go in with the mindset of, here's my list of complaints, you need to do better. Go and say, I want to share my perspective. This is my story.
Mm-hmm.
This is my story. This is where I'm at now. I want to tell you my story and maybe get your feedback on it.
Okay. So you had the meeting.
Yeah. And what he said is that all of the young people, the people who used to admire the bro cause of the world, they're like that does not exist in this young generation. They are all activists, and the place that they are exercising their activism is in the field of journalism. Yeah. So they are justice minded. They are social justice minded, and they already have come in with a viewpoint. They don't see neutrality as a value to be communicated, or as a how to put this. Neutrality is not a framework for conveying information to them. The idea that you would present a list of facts and trust the reader to reach the conclusion, they don't believe that. They believe the reader needs to be led to a conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I did a journalism degree, and in the late 2000s, and I remember there was so much time spent problematizing even the pursuit of objectivity, that I was just sitting in seminar, I'd be like, why are we here then? Like, like even if you know you can never attain it, like the pursuit of objectivity is supposed to be like that's why I was in the journalism program. It was completely bizarre. It was one of those, you can just see something kind of eating itself from the inside out in real time.
Because, wait, so the conversation was around pursuing something that could never be obtained?
No, that I think that would be a very different conversation. It was like, why, it was much more like, why would you even bother to try to be objective? Because objectivity is
That's
completely
like,
impossible, and it's like biased in favor of, you know, the powerful, and like
oh,
to talk about the impossibility of total objectivity is, I think, good for journalists. But this was very different. This was like, there's no reason for us to be here. And I feel like my college education was kind of like that, because like history, literature, anthropology, like all of these disciplines were just like, the natural conclusion from working with the professors was, oh, it's really problematic to like do any of this, and like there's no there, and like you can't report, you can't learn anything about another culture as an outsider, so I guess we don't do anthropology anymore. I
this is a really interesting rabbit hole to go into. So my undergrad is in anthropology and yours is in journalism?
Journalism and history.
Okay. I was a journalism major for a semester and I was talked out of it because I was told that you will never go anywhere without a good editor because you spell like your spelling is atrocious. And my grammar skills were not that great. So
Those both seem really correctable compared to some of the errors that I've encountered as an editor.
I mean,
You're just fixing somebody's spelling, like it's a great day.
I mean, that was pre-AI though. I mean, like that was back when an editor actually had to read and
Yeah.
do those corrections.
Yeah, they don't have to anymore, thank goodness.
Yeah, the bad spellers should not be encouraged away from journalism. No, but the anthropology. So when were you in undergrad? Like, are we
I graduated in December 2009.
okay? I graduated in 2004. And you're correct. Anthropology was absolutely, even at the undergrad level at that time, basically saying, why bother? You
Yeah.
cannot. Yeah. I remember writing a in-depth paper about a book, something along the lines of like, if anthropology doesn't break your heart, there's no, it was all about putting the self into the work. Even then, I'm ashamed to say I was arguing pro putting the self into the work.
Yeah.
So my undergrad thesis was called Entry and Existence in a Countercultural Anarchist Collective.
You should see if Colin will go over that on his podcast.
Read my undergrad thesis. I mean, honest. Okay, here we go. There actually was there was one of the questions in the like survey that I did of all of the anarchists, whether or not somebody had eaten from a dumpster in the past month.
And the answer was
The high percentage of most of us had, yes.
okay.
Yes. But yeah. But no, I was totally arguing then that it should be about the self because you could not be objective and remove the anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, the we should talk about the HHS report.
We should. Okay, I have finished it. Gotten to the end.
60%.
Okay. So you've not read the therapy chapter.
I just got into the therapy chapter.
Okay. Corey, have you read?
Just flipped around it.
Okay.
So I have the least.
You have the least.
So we'll expect you to be the most opinionated.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So I wrote a Substack piece about this. this
Yeah.
week that I published that has gotten a lot of really interesting feedback, I guess is the statement. Anybody familiar with the person Zinnia Jones?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I thought Zinnia had left X.
Hmm.
Okay. I also used to be blocked by Zinnia. Apparently I very much pissed him off because he has gone after this piece that I wrote for like 3 days straight. And
So
then,
just briefly describe the piece for people who, so I did read it. It was great, but
thank
maybe
you.
not everybody's read it.
Okay, so I was reading the HHS report at the same time, basically, where I had traveled to go to a dear friend's wedding. And it was a very interesting wedding in that I was kind of undercover. First of all, I was not the invitee either. I was the plus one.
Yeah.
Okay, so my girlfriend's invited to this wedding, friend of ours. And our friend is also in the gender critical world, but can travel in both worlds. And so at her wedding, she has this like whole group of like invitees that are like, it was like the conversion of these worlds where it was such a conversion that I got to pretend like I was not, that I was someone else.
Okay.
So I was kind of told like, hey, maybe don't tell everybody your real name. Don't tell people don't tell everybody who you are, kind of a
What
thing.
name were you supposed to use?
Nobody even told me. And also
Hey,
nobody gave
if you're going to make up a fake name in a circumstance like that, can I pitch one that you should use?
Yes.
Eliza Mondegreen.
Oh yeah. You can take it. I'm gonna get rid of it.
Here's the other thing. I have a really hard time lying to people like face to face. So like
Yeah,
everybody's
you
like,
have a very expressive face.
I can't, yeah, it comes across. So I was also told to maybe make up a backstory about myself, which also was like, I can't do this. No,
Just,
anyway,
just ask questions from other people. They love to talk about themselves. Don't have to remember anything.
that's what I did. Went to the rehearsal dinner and found out later, although I picked up on it pretty quickly, that we were seated at a table with a trans couple. Well, it was a lesbian couple, but one of them was presenting as a man. And then at the wedding, so I'm reading the HHS report, reading it, all of this history about the
Reading
homophobic.
it at the wedding.
No, I was reading it
That's
right.
not very undercover.
No, no, no. No, I was
Or
In
very
a binder.
social. I mean,
no, but I was right up until like we were almost late for the ceremony because I was still reading.
okay.
I was like, shit, I gotta go curl my hair, I gotta get ready. We go to the wedding and there is this um, young girl there. And she's in this blue dress, but she's got like combat boots on. So, but her hair was cut total. She was like basically had shaved her head. I had no idea who she was, but she came up to me in the appetizer line and she just kept kind of coming up. The first
Yeah.
question she asked me was, when's the cake? And I'm like, what? What? Like, what kind
Yeah,
of question is that?
excuse to talk.
Right. And then she was like, you're the only grown up I want to talk to. About into the wedding, into the dancing part. People had been drinking, not this kid. She came up and she just point blank asked me, "Are you a her exact words were, "I don't want to be homophobic, but are you a lesbian?" And I was like, first of all, just the framing of that it would be seemed as homophobic to ask somebody if they're a lesbian. I was like, yes, lesbian, that's my girlfriend.
Yeah.
She said, I've never seen two people like you before, ever. And
How old is she again?
my guess is like 12, 13, maybe. Lives in California.
Yeah.
Um, she just broke my heart. I mean, how do you never see? And I mean, what's interesting is that she really could care less about my girlfriend who's kind of butch masculine, because I think what she was basically saying was, I feel like I'm masculine like this, and I never seen that I could have this possibility of a relationship with someone femme presenting like this. Like I could see this world.
Yeah.
And what I found out later was that she hadn't, she had told some of the other adults in her life. She said to me, "Oh, I think I'm like that too, but I use the word pan." So pansexual. Um, and I found out later that she had told some other people that maybe she thought she wanted them to use they, them pronouns. And
Mhm.
I just kind of mashed these two things together in this piece, because so much of the HHS report that I felt like I had the hardest time going through was that historical layout of the underlying homophobia.
Yeah.
Did you get through that chapter, Eliza?
Yeah. I mean,
Was
where they're talking about like all but one of the kids in the Dutch protocol, like they were all gay or bi except for one, and there was one who didn't know. Like, it, you're, I'm just reading the report, and it's like, what did they ever think that they were treating, and what do they think that they're treating today? Because it's not what they think they're treating. They're still treating kids' discomfort with being gay to a very large extent.
the trans individuals that went after or or wrote, there's been a couple posts written by them about my post, are basically saying that we don't understand trans.
So it's the, I mean, I'm guessing it's the Diane Aronsoft, like proto transgender identifying as gay is just a stepping stone to their true transgender identity bullshit.
I can't, I don't know that it's even given that much historical weight, just basically saying trans is different than gay, you don't understand.
Well, that's easy. I mean, if you don't understand, then you just have to give up and stop making your case.
Yeah.
No, they're saying I don't understand.
No, I
Oh,
know.
I know
That's
because
the
because
correct implication.
you lack the gnosis. You don't have that. You don't have that special spiritual like concept. You don't have the understand. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the knowledge. They have the knowledge. You don't have the knowledge.
What
So
is
you
they
have to.
have?
Yeah. What's that?
What is the knowledge that they have that I don't have?
Oh, being trans.
It's the secret
But what?
mystical perspective that makes it not homophobic to transition a bunch of kids who really look gay.
Right.
But that's not a thing. Special mystical knowledge is
No,
not a
it's not. It's not a thing. But that's
Okay.
that's the idea. The idea is you can't critique it because you don't get it, and the fact that you don't get it is manifest because you're asking this question, which shows that you are not a believer.
Right. How dare you try to ruin the believers, though? How dare you deny the knowledge? Believe trans kids, Jamie.
But they can't say what that is.
No, they can't.
That's the point.
Okay. But but if you go through the HHS report, it just walks you through the only differential that they were doing, the thing that they could suss out though, was what I refer to as the proto-gay,
Yeah.
which Zinnia says that it is homophobic to use the phrase proto-gay.
Okay. Because why?
Because that's what homophobes would say about, I don't know what his entire point was.
Yeah.
Well, it's what's the terminology for it? It's a moral taint that you're using language that bad people also use. You're morally contaminated if you use language that somebody else used for a completely different purpose.
what is the, what are the other people use that for? Are they trying to imply that the,
I mean, I think focus, I don't think they use the word proto-gay, but I mean, I've seen trans activists point at focus on the family talking about kids who might grow up to be gay. And it's like recognizing that gender nonconformity might say something about sexual orientation is problematic because some people would then crack down on the gender nonconformity to hopefully, in their perspective, preempt the appearance of the much more dreaded sexual like but it doesn't, of course it's not actually problematic to notice like, hey, this kid might grow up like they're just a little different.
I gotta get running here before too long.
Okay, well, we
you
can,
want to talk about your non-gender thing of the week? Do you have one?
Non-gender thing of the week.
Oh God, you didn't come prepared.
That's
Alex,
right.
do you have one?
no, Corey does have one, but he has to think of it.
Yeah, that's right. You know that I'm pursuing a conversion to Judaism,
Yes.
and I don't talk about that too much because I just don't know what I'm doing yet. Like,
Meaning you don't know if you're gonna go through with it or you're just,
no, I'm just like anything new that you take on, there's a learning curve. So I'm still learning a lot of things. So I don't want to express viewpoints yet, except from the context that I'm a learner. But I started listening, like the new audiobook that I'm picking up here is Ross Dothot. I'm probably
oh yeah,
name wrong.
from the
Has
New
a
York
book,
Times.
yeah, from the New York Times, released a book called Believe: Why Everyone Should Be Religious. So that is my thing right now that I'm listening to.
Okay, does he not have an even newer book that's like about UFOs and like
We're not talking bad about Ross.
okay.
We're not?
He changed my life.
Okay.
How?
How did he change your life?
Oh my God. He wrote an NPR, not NPR. He wrote a New York Times piece and it straight up said in it, liberals, if you still believe in pediatric gender medicine, you are going to come to the belief eventually, basically, that you have been duped. And I've tried to say this before, basically, because I've never had contact with this man. How do you spell his last name?
Douthat.
Eout.
Hat.
See, I can't spell.
Maybe we should invite him on this podcast and just have a conversation.
We've never had a guest before. Are we going to ever have guests?
Maybe there will be a week when none of us is available except for, and then we can just have one total stranger come on and say whatever they want. And he could talk about, that kind of the dark, ghostly presences.
I would
When did you read this article? At what stage did you read it?
Working in a gender center, still, no, God, I gotta find it. I believe I had left by then, but I wasn't figuring out yet what I was gonna do with all of my, what the hell did I just participate in? And I read this article and he just blew my mind and I was like, oh my God, I have to do something. And I've never gotten to tell him this. Oh, okay. It was published on April 13th of 2022, and it was titled How to Make Sense of the New LGBT Culture War.
Okay.
And Corey, tell us more about the book that you got.
Yeah, it's just making the argument about why we should be religious.
And is it salient? Does it work for you?
Not yet, but I'm gonna finish it and think about it afterward.
Okay.
Okay.
I do think that there's a certain sort of secular dogmatic dogmatism that when we say, science can explain this, therefore religion is superfluous. I think that does lead us towards overlooking a lot of the other benefits of having a spiritual outlook.
Yeah. I would agree with
That's mine.
that. Okay. Jamie, are we gonna talk more about the report and then do ours, or are we gonna go too?
I think we should go too. And
Okay.
Really?
yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Have we been recording for about an hour or no?
A bit less.
Okay, well, I'll just read this real quick from the Ross story.
Okay.
This is the ending of this piece. The one sentence that I think eventually this is pretty much why I had to go public. He wrote, which means that if you are a liberal who believes as much already, but you don't feel comfortable saying it, your silence will eventually become your regret. And the sentence before that said, within too short of a time, not only will conservatives, but most liberals will recognize that we have been running an experiment on trans-identifying youth without good or certain evidence, inspired by ideological motives rather than scientific rigor, in a way that future generations will regard as a grave medical political scandal.
Yeah.
And I felt, yep, my silence is already, I already regret my silence. Yeah. So, yeah, reach out to him, Corey. Tell him we talked about your book and he created a whistleblower.
All right, I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
But that's not your non-gender thing of the week. Okay, bye, Corey.
That's not my non-gender thing of the week, but yeah.
What's your non-gender thing?
Tornadoes.
Today? Yesterday?
No, we haven't had one yet, but
Okay.
yeah, just it's tornado season here coming up in my hometown soon. So I've just been thinking about tornadoes a decent amount and thinking about how we truly are the only ones responsible for our own first response to crisis. And I saw you had tweeted out something yesterday about storms as well. And I think there's something really interesting about being a Midwesterner in that sense of that we have to have that. It's, you constantly have to be prepared for that. And we don't have it's not like you get a 2-week leeway and where's the hurricane coming and which direction is it?
Yeah, but it's also not, oh my God, there was just a massive earthquake.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's a different kind of living with it.
Yeah, it's like, it's going to come in this season. Do you have your shit together? Like, you should have some stuff together. Where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah. Do you have a place to go in a tornado?
Basement.
Okay, you have a
Yeah,
basement.
the basement where the washer and dryer for the apartment are. Yeah, but I grew up with people having those great big cellars that you open from outside the house, and you go down like in the countryside.
Yeah.
So I was very, very afraid of tornadoes when I was a kid, but it's also kind of exciting. Yeah, so we had big storms too. It was reminding me of when I was in Montreal a couple of years ago, and Montreal had maybe its first tornado warning, and which is very unusual.
Do they have, I'm assuming they don't have tornado sirens like we do in the Midwest.
I don't even remember that part.
Okay.
I don't remember that. What I do remember is that all of my Canadian friends and like all of like Montreal Twitter thought that because there was a tornado warning, that meant that there was a tornado going through Montreal right then, and that they were like seeing it, and it was like, you guys, we didn't have a tornado, like nothing happened.
It's very different when it actually happens.
Right. It was like, oh, we had that tornado yesterday. It's like, no, we didn't.
Oh, you already got to clarify the misinformation of history.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but I think it'll be an attractive story for people to hang on to because it was such a rare occurrence to even be warned about the possibility of one. My non-gender thing would be hanging out with little kids is super fun. And I realized that I had literally not done it for like years and years and years. Like I used to be a nanny, so I used to hang out with little kids all the time. And yeah, it was really great. And it made me realize that like, you know, almost none of my friends have had kids.
Yeah.
And just it feels like very different to think about it when you are around kids versus when you like maybe never see them.
Yes, because you are responding positively about having little kids around you. I think you wrote that you got to play chalk and
Yeah, we played chalk. We picked what like invasive garlic mustard in the woods. And um yeah, it's pretty adorable when a 4-year-old is like, I want to sit by my best friend and I want to do stuff with my best friend. Like we just met, but it's very adorable.
I'm so I wish I had those feelings still about little kids.
Yeah.
As soon as you said that, all I could remember was a real unfortunate incident maybe 2 weeks ago
Okay.
where a urine soaked pull-up became a volleyball
Oh no.
and
Inside?
inside the house, which then burst open. And any parent, and apparently there's a whole bunch of Reddit threads on this. If you want a new rabbit hole on Reddit to go down what happens with burst open diapers. The gel inside was on the ceiling of the bedroom, all over the wood floor, all over the mattresses, all over the walls. It was to the point where at one point I pretty much just sat down in the room and wanted to sob. And at which point I heard from the other room, hey, the solution is baking soda. I saw it on Reddit because we couldn't figure out how to sop up the nonsense.
Yeah. Baking soda
So,
is amazing, but
yeah.
you
So
could also just move to a new apartment.
oh my, or I could also just send my 3 small children on the Amtrak to visit you for a week and
Yeah.
you can
You
really
can see how I feel after that.
You can, yes, see how you feel about small kids after a whole solid week.
Yeah.
No, I
Okay.
ignore them. Yes,
Okay.
you can babysit whenever you want.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know that we have much. Is there ever only been 2 people at the end?
I don't think so. But okay, so next week Ben will not be back. Lisa will hopefully be back. And
We really should talk about research studies.
we should talk about research studies. And we wanted to talk about the puberty blocker trial
Yeah, in the
and
UK.
ethics in the UK.
And even the Washington Post article.
Yeah, and I still think we should talk more about the HHS report. Today we kind of everybody should read Jamie's article just about, yeah,
It was really hard to write.
it was really hard to read. Like it was hard to read your article about it. It was hard to read the report about it because I feel like there was nothing new for me in those sections of the report, but to see it all brought together in one place. And, you know, it's in this really undressed language, so nobody's hyping it. Nobody is, you know, spinning it politically. And it's just like, it's just really devastating to read it all in one place. None of the politicization is necessary because it speaks for itself, what it has been and what it still is.
Sorry, yeah. It's just so clear where it started.
Yeah.
That's
And
what's so devastating.
yeah, and none of this happens unless society in general and everybody involved in it in an adult capacity has ideas about a right and wrong way to be a boy or a girl. And that especially gay kids are going to run afoul of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we felt that as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
so yeah, we'll come back to that too, but let us know in the comments what else you want us to talk about. And I think we should probably do like maybe an AMA or an ask us anything
okay.
sometime soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the American Psychiatric Association conference is coming up, so there might be some news stories.
Okay.
That as well. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right. Have a lovely weekend.
You too. Bye.